You know, there's a particular moment in human experience that's absolutely irreversible. It's not dramatic. There's no thunder, no lightning, no voice from heaven. It's simply the moment when you see something clearly for the first time, really see it, and in that instant, something fundamental shifts in your consciousness. A door closes behind you, and you realize with a mixture of relief and terror that you can never walk back through it. You can never return to the innocent blindness you enjoyed just moments before. Now, we have a rather interesting relationship with this kind of seeing, don't we? Part of us desperately wants to understand, to know, to see clearly. We pursue truth, we seek enlightenment, we want to wake up. But another part of us, perhaps the wiser part, knows that once you see certain things, you're burdened with them forever. You cannot unsee them. You cannot unknow them. You cannot return to the comfortable darkness of not knowing. And I want to explore this with you today. Not to discourage you from seeing, because you really don't have a choice in the matter. If you're ready to see something, you'll see it whether you want to or not. But to help you understand what happens in that moment of irreversible clarity, and why there's no going back once the veil has been lifted. Let me start with something simple. Have you ever learned how a magic trick works? Perhaps you watched a magician and were completely fooled, delighted by the impossibility of what you were seeing. And then someone showed you the mechanism, the hidden mirror, the sleight of hand, the misdirection, and suddenly you could never watch that trick the same way again. The magic was gone. Not because the performance changed, but because your perception changed. You had seen behind the curtain, and you could never return to the innocent wonder of not knowing. This is a small example of what I'm talking about. But the same principle applies to much bigger things. Once you see how your mind creates your suffering, you can't fully believe your own melodramas anymore. Once you see how society manipulates you through fear and desire, you can't be as easily controlled. Once you see through your own ego's games, you can't play them with the same unconscious enthusiasm. The seeing changes everything, and the change is permanent. But why is this? Why can't you go back? It's a curious thing, isn't it? Your brain is the same brain, your body is the same body. Nothing physical has changed, and yet everything has changed. It's as if a switch has been flipped that cannot be unflipped. A bell has been rung that cannot be unrung. The reason is this: consciousness doesn't work like a computer, where you can delete files and return to a previous state. Consciousness is more like a river that only flows in one direction. You can't make the river flow backward. You can't return to an upstream location. Once the water has flowed past a point, it's gone. Once your awareness has expanded to include something new, it cannot contract back to exclude it. Let me give you some examples of the things people see that they can never unsee. First, there's the seeing of hypocrisy. Perhaps you grew up in a religious household, deeply believing in the teachings of your faith, and then one day you noticed the gap between what was preached and what was practiced. You saw the judgment hidden beneath the love, the control hidden beneath the guidance, the fear hidden beneath the certainty. And once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. Every sermon, every prayer, every religious gathering now contained this visible crack, this obvious contradiction that no one else seemed to notice or care about. You might wish you could go back to the simple faith of your childhood, but you can't. The innocence is gone. The belief has been complicated by understanding. And there's a grief in this, a real loss. You've lost the comfort of unquestioning belief, the warmth of belonging to a community of the certain. But you've gained something too, haven't you? You've gained integrity. You've gained the ability to see clearly. And you cannot trade that back for comfort, no matter how much you might sometimes want to. Second, there's the seeing of your own patterns. Perhaps through therapy or meditation, or simply life experience, you suddenly recognize a pattern you've been running your entire life. Maybe you see that you sabotage relationships just as they get close, because you're terrified of intimacy. Or you see that you create drama to feel alive because you're afraid of the emptiness beneath the noise. Or you see that you play small to avoid the responsibility of your own power. Once you see these patterns clearly, you can still run them. Oh yes, you'll still find yourself doing the same old things, but you can't do them unconsciously anymore. There's a part of you watching now, aware of what you're doing, even as you do it. And this awareness, this witnessing consciousness, slowly begins to weaken the pattern's hold on you. You can't go back to running it blindly, automatically, without any sense of choice. Third, there's the seeing of mortality. Now everyone knows they're going to die in an abstract sense. But there comes a moment, for some people, when death stops being an abstract concept and becomes a lived reality. Perhaps you have a close call, or someone you love dies suddenly, or you simply have a moment of clear seeing where the fact of your own ending becomes viscerally real. When this happens, when you truly see and feel your own mortality, everything changes. The trivial concerns that once consumed you suddenly seem absurd. The grudges you held, the fears that controlled you, the things you thought were so important, they all shrink in significance, and you can never fully return to taking them seriously again. You've seen too much, you've felt too deeply the transient nature of this existence. Now, here's what's interesting about all these irreversible moments of seeing. They're often experienced as a kind of death, and in a way they are. Something in you dies when you see clearly. The part of you that could believe the illusion, that could play the game unconsciously, that could live in comfortable ignorance, that part dies, and you mourn it. You grieve for the innocent you that you can never be again. But there's also a birth happening. A more conscious you is emerging. A you that can see more clearly, feel more deeply, live more authentically. This new you is more vulnerable because you can't hide behind illusions anymore. But it's also more real, more alive, more present to what actually is rather than what you wish things were. Let me tell you what I've observed about people who try to go back after they've seen too much. They can't actually go back, but they can pretend they haven't seen what they've seen. They can put on a convincing performance of the old blindness. They can act as if they still believe things they no longer believe, as if they can't see things they clearly see. But this pretending has a cost. It creates a split in their being, a fundamental dishonesty at the core of their existence. Part of them knows the truth, but another part is performing ignorance. And this split is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance to maintain the lie. It creates a sense of fraudulence, of living as an imposter in your own life. I've seen people do this for years, even decades. They've seen that their marriage is dead, but they pretend it's alive. They've seen that their career path is wrong for them, but they pretend it's fine. They've seen through the values of their community, but they pretend to still share them. And all the while, there's this quiet suffering, this gnawing sense of inauthenticity, this feeling of being trapped in a life that no longer fits who they actually are. The tragedy is that they think they're choosing the easier path by pretending not to see. But it's actually harder, much harder, because living in alignment with what you've seen, even when it's difficult, even when it disrupts your life, is ultimately less painful than living in contradiction to your own knowing. So if you can't go back, what do you do? How do you live once you've seen too much? Well, first, you stop trying to go back. You stop wishing you could return to innocence. You stop looking backward with nostalgia at the simpler time when you didn't know what you know now, because that looking backward is just another form of resistance to what is. Instead, you grieve what you've lost. You let yourself feel the sadness of it, the loneliness of it, the disorientation of it. You lost something when you saw clearly. Maybe you lost your faith, your marriage, your career, your community, your sense of self. Whatever it is, you lost it. And that loss is real. Honor it. Don't skip over it in a rush to get to some new beginning. Second, you live the question. Once you've seen something clearly, you don't immediately know what to do with that seeing. The old life doesn't fit anymore, but the new life hasn't yet revealed itself. You're in a kind of liminal space between the no longer and the not yet. And this space is uncomfortable. Everything in you wants to resolve it quickly, to figure it out, to make a plan. But sometimes the wisest thing to do is to simply live in the uncertainty, to not know what comes next, to trust that the way will reveal itself when you're ready to see it. This takes courage. It takes faith, not in some external God, but in the intelligence of the universe, in the process of life itself. Third, you find others who have seen what you've seen. This is crucial. When you see something that others around you can't or won't see, you feel crazy. You doubt your own perception. You wonder if you're making it all up. But when you find even one other person who sees what you see, everything changes. You're no longer alone. Your perception is validated. You realize you're not crazy after all. You're just awake to something that others are still sleeping through. These people become your new community, not a community based on shared illusions, but a community based on shared seeing. And this kind of community is deeper, more real, more nourishing than communities based on unconscious agreement. Because you can be fully yourself with people who see what you see. You don't have to pretend, you don't have to perform, you can be authentic. Now, let me tell you about the different kinds of seeings that you can never unsee, because not all seeing is the same. Some seeing is personal. You see through your own illusions, your own patterns, your own story. This seeing is difficult, but it's also contained. It affects primarily you and your immediate relationships. But there's another kind of seeing that's collective. You see through the illusions that your entire society is based on. You see that the economic system is rigged. You see that the political system is theater. You see that the education system is indoctrination. You see that the medical system is sick care, not health care. You see that the justice system is anything but just. When you see these collective illusions clearly, you can't go back to being a comfortable citizen. You can't just participate in the system unconsciously. You can't just go along to get along, because you know what's really happening beneath the surface story that everyone else believes or pretends to believe. This kind of seeing is particularly isolating, because it's not just your personal relationships that become difficult. It's your relationship with the entire social order. You become, in a sense, an outsider, a stranger in your own culture. And this can be deeply painful, profoundly alienating. But here's what I want to tell you about this kind of seeing. You're not seeing things that aren't there. You're seeing things that are there, but that most people are too comfortable or too afraid to acknowledge. And your seeing, as painful as it is actually a service, because societies need people who can see clearly, who won't go along with collective delusions, who will speak uncomfortable truths. You might not be thanked for this service. In fact, you'll probably be attacked for it, but you're performing an essential function. You're like the child in the story of the emperor's new clothes, the one who states the obvious truth that everyone else is too invested in the lie to acknowledge. Now, there's one more kind of seeing I want to talk about, the deepest kind, the most irreversible. This is the seeing of the nature of consciousness itself, the seeing through the illusion of the separate self, the recognition that you are not who you thought you were. This seeing can happen in meditation, in psychedelic experiences, in spontaneous moments of clarity. Suddenly, the boundaries you thought were solid dissolve. The self you thought was real is seen to be a construction. The separation between you and the world is recognized as an illusion, and you experience directly what mystics have been trying to describe for centuries, that there is only one consciousness, appearing as many forms. When this happens, when you truly see this even for a moment, you can never fully believe in your separate self again. Oh, you'll still operate as if you're a separate person. You'll still say I and me and mine. You'll still have preferences and desires and fears. But there's a part of you that knows it's a game, a play, a temporary costume that consciousness is wearing. And this knowing changes everything. It doesn't make life easier. It doesn't solve your problems. But it does fundamentally shift your relationship to your problems. Because when you know that you are not just the character in the story, but also the awareness in which the story appears, suffering loses some of its grip. It becomes more transparent, more workable, more obviously impermanent.
But here's the paradox. Even this ultimate seeing, this recognition of your true nature, you can forget it. You can fall back into the trance of separation, back into identification with the separate self. In fact, most people do this countless times. They have a moment of clear seeing, and then the old patterns reassert themselves, and they forget what they saw.
So when I say you can never go back once you've seen it, I don't mean you'll be permanently enlightened, never again confused or deluded. What I mean is that you can never be quite as unconscious as you were before. The seeing has left a mark, a memory, a kind of bookmark in your consciousness. And even when you forget, part of you remembers that you saw, and this memory eventually calls you back to look again. It's like waking up from a dream. You might fall back asleep and have more dreams, but you can never dream as innocently as you did before you knew that you were dreaming. There's always a part of you now that knows this is a dream, that can wake up at any moment. So why can you never go back once you see it? because consciousness is not a reversible process. Evolution, whether biological or psychological or spiritual, moves in one direction, forward toward greater complexity, greater awareness, greater integration. You can resist this movement. You can slow it down. You can spend years or lifetimes trying to avoid the implications of what you've seen, but you cannot reverse it. You cannot unevolve. The river flows downstream. The arrow of time moves forward. The tree grows upward, and consciousness expands. It doesn't contract. Once it has opened to include something new, it cannot close back down to exclude it. Not truly, not permanently. And here's what's beautiful about this irreversibility. Though it might not seem beautiful when you're in the painful middle of it, it means you're being called forward. You're being invited to grow beyond where you are. You're being asked to become more conscious, more aware, more authentic than you've been before. The seeing that you can never unsee is a gift, even when it feels like a curse. It's life's way of saying, you're ready for more now. You can handle a fuller truth. You can live at a deeper level. And yes, it disrupts your comfortable life. Yes, it isolates you from people who are still asleep. Yes, it demands courage and honesty and the willingness to not know what comes next. But it also liberates you. It frees you from living a lie. It releases you from the exhausting effort of maintaining illusions. It allows you to be real, to be authentic, to live in alignment with what you actually see, rather than what you're supposed to see. So if you're someone who has seen something you can never unsee, if you've crossed a threshold and realized you can't go back, let me tell you this, you're exactly where you need to be. The discomfort you feel is not a sign that something's wrong, it's a sign that something's right. You're growing, you're waking up, you're becoming more fully yourself. And yes, you've lost something. You've lost the innocence, the comfort, the easy belonging of unconsciousness. But you've gained something more valuable. You've gained your integrity. You've gained your authenticity. You've gained the ability to live a life based on what's true rather than what's comfortable. The reason you can never go back once you see it is because you're not the same person who didn't see it. That person died in the moment of seeing, and a new person was born. A person who can see, a person who knows, a person who can never again live comfortably in the old lies. And this new person, this seer, this knower, has a different task now. Not to go back, which is impossible. Not to pretend not to see, which is exhausting. But to go forward, to live what you know, to embody what you've seen, to become the person who can hold this truth, who can carry this awareness, who can live authentically in a world that still prefers its comfortable illusions. This is the narrow path, the road less traveled, the way of the conscious human being. It's not easy, but it's real. And in the end, what else is there? What else is worth doing? Once you've seen the truth, even a glimpse of it, how can you do anything but live it as best you can in each moment? You can never go back once you see it. This is not a tragedy. This is the beginning of your real life. The life where you stop living based on what you're supposed to believe and start living based on what you actually see. And that life, difficult as it may be, is the only life worth living, because it's yours, truly yours, based on your seeing, your knowing, your direct experience of reality. So don't try to go back. You can't anyway. Go forward instead, into the unknown, into the uncertain, into the life that's waiting for you on the other side of your seeing. That's where your real adventure begins.